LinkedIn presents.
This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with folks who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and it's hard to believe, but there are some very successful wine and spirits companies that aren't run by celebrities. My guest this week is a trailblazer in the world of craft whiskey making, the CEO of Bespoken Spirits, Peter Iglesias. Bespoken has captured the attention of connoisseurs and experts alike with its revolutionary approach to crafting exceptional whiskeys. Their new portfolio of award-winning whiskeys has taken the industry by storm, captivating the taste buds and hearts of whiskey enthusiasts across the globe. Pete is an industry vet who has spent decades revitalizing brands, successfully launching new products, and building successful teams instrumental to exceeding revenue goals. So let's raise a glass and welcome Peter to the podcast. Hey, Pete.
Hey, Joe. How you doing?
I'm excellent. So I got to start by being fully transparent here. I am not a dark spirits drinker. So I went to an event in New York City a couple weeks ago. Julie Macklow has this really fancy whiskey, and it was a big tasting party for her new whiskey. The room's silent. Everyone's sipping their whiskey. It's all folks in the industry drinking. They're they're making comments. And all you hear from me is, so that's the kind of whiskey drinker I am. It actually gives me a full body sensation when I drink any kind of dark spirits. So tell me about your connection to whiskey, and of everything you could do, Pete, why whiskey?
It's interesting. Most people start out drinking clear spirits because it's a little easier to drink, lower ABV. It's a little more mixable, you could call it. But so I've been in the spirits industry for over 20 years. So I've seen and done a lot. Always been a fan of bourbon. It's kind of my go-to drink, and I love it. So I came over to Bespoken Spirits about 10 months ago or so, just have fallen in love with this project, with this technology, with the juice that we're making. It is this delicious award-winning juice that nobody really saw coming, and it's with the technology, it's really kind of disrupting this historic whiskey making world that we're in today. So that's kind of where I'm at with the whiskey world and where I came in, and I love it. I have a passion for it and really like to drink it too.
Nice. So, and for someone that's in it and enjoys it on and off the clock, I would love to get your take on the celebrity proliferation into the alcohol business. As someone like you, do you see, and I know you're not going to badmouth any celebrity, but I'm just curious what someone who as an old school spirits person sees, that basically if you have a SAG card, you also must have your own spirit. What do people like you think about that?
I don't have a problem with it at all. If you have a passion for something, and if you're doing it because you love it and you enjoy it, obviously a lot of people do it for the money, but I think it's a passion project for a lot of the folks that do it now, and frankly speaking, we're getting involved in it with, we have an artist partnership division of our company too. And because of our technology, we have the capabilities of making high quality aged spirit quickly. So we have access to going to different artists can come to us, and we can give them 10 different flavor profiles of a whiskey or bourbon, rye, you name it. We can even do rum. They pick and choose, and then we can create something special for them.
Wow.
And it's a unique situation for us. But going back to your question, you see a ton of it. You see Casamigos, you see all these big actors and celebrities getting involved. Even LeBron James has a tequila now. And so, everybody's dabbling in it. I think it's also because it's cool. I think people love, this is a fun industry we're in. It's a great time to be a part of, this culture of the spirit world. So I have no problem with it. This is my world. I love doing it. So having people like that come and being involved in it is a great thing.
And what's your radar when it comes to those folks? You mentioned about the passion, because you could tell, and you mentioned Casamigos, Clooney, and you could tell Aviation Gin with Ryan Reynolds, that these guys are all in. But then you're seeing a lot of interlopers who are, like you said, they're in, Man, I just saw Clooney sold that tequila for like $500 million. I think I should get. Can you tell right away when one of these folks are just doing it for the cash?
Yeah, I mean, personally, you can really tell by, if they're really heavily involved in the day-to-day activity of it, if they're posting on social media. You look at The Rock, what he did with his Hermana. I mean, that he has just really blown that brand up, and it's actually it's a delicious product. So I think you can tell. And there are some other artists that get involved and they just kind of, they're half in and half out, and they, when they go out, they expect their stuff, and you can really, I mean, I can tell.
Yeah, I figured as much. I'd love to ask you about you mentioned a couple times the technology of it. And, you never think when you're having a conversation with someone in the spirits industry that tech's involved. But you mentioned something about technology and speeding the aging process. Well, I wish you could find a way to slow it down. But talk to me about the speeding of the aging process when it comes, because from what I understand with a lot of these spirits, it's all about them. I apologize for butchering this, but like soaking in a barrel over months and years. And that's how the taste evolves. Tell me about this tech without giving away the company spirits of how you're able to age this process and get the product out quicker.
Yeah, it's a great question. What we really do is we finish the product. So we can take something that comes straight off of a still, and then we take oak staves and we toast them, we double toast them, and then we put them into this vat, and we use pressure, heat, time, movement, and we've come up with this scientific methodology to make it taste like something that's 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old. So, it's not so much what we start with, it's more how we finish it. And that's what I won't call it rapid aging, because it's not. It's just, we're kind of changing the way. And I like to say, they used to put the liquid in the barrel. We put the barrel in the liquid. So that's kind of the methodology behind it. So it's just a different way of finishing this, and it's creating this great tasting product, award-winning product, which nobody really saw coming, and including myself. I had to taste it to believe it when I came over here. So it's been an excellent process for us, for me especially.
So cool. So you're not literally aging it, you're aging the taste of it. Did I say it correctly?
You could say we're finishing it differently.
Okay.
Instead of finishing it for 5 years in a barrel, maybe we take something that's in the barrel for 2, and then we can, with the process, we can make it taste like it's 5.
Fascinating.
And proof of concept for us in the first couple of years was really important. And winning 150 awards in just like 3 years is pretty unheard of. And these are some pretty big awards: San Francisco, New York, World of Whiskeys. This is not Ted's Bar, winning your best tasting whiskey. So these are legitimate, high class kind of awards that we're winning. So, the proof is in the pudding, as to put it mildly. Yeah. So just tastes great. People like it. And it's really something for the whiskey explorer out there. Somebody who wants to try something different, something that's unique and flavorful. And that's what we have.
So I made it clear from the top, Pete, I have no idea how any of this works in the dark spirits world. So you talk about winning 150 awards. What separates Bespoken? And I know someone like you whose palate is trained, you could probably tell one whiskey from another. Man, Pete, I probably couldn't tell the difference. What is it in whiskey that makes it taste different or reacts different in people's palate?
Yeah, it's the taste profiles, obviously. You age these things in different types of barrels and for different periods of time, and there's different elements that are involved. We don't put anything, no additives in our whiskeys. So it's all natural. It's just a process that we're building great tasting juice. And what makes things taste better really is up to the people tasting it. Really, everybody has, perception is reality. So these are blind tasting competitions. So it's literally the taste profile that they're grading, let's just say. And so again, you have different flavors, like, you'll taste like a toasted almond or some sweetness, some cranberry, orange zest, all these different things that these professional tasters all can kind of taste and grade and say, wow, this is a great balance of X, Y, and Z. So I don't want to say mastered it, but we've done a really good job on creating some excellent spirits so far.
Pretty cool. And from what I understand, you have some heavy hitters investing in the company. I'm not going to out anybody here, but I'm going to get businessy here. What's your value proposition? Why would blank person prominent in this one world say, "Hey, I want to go into business with Bespoken"? What is your value proposition? I mean, obviously the 150 awards, the technology, it's all there on paper, but what separates you from the others?
The technology plays a big part of it. That is it. What we've done is we've created these winning, great tasting whiskeys. But there are a lot of those out there, like you said. But what kind of separates us is we have some incredible people that are already involved. We have Derek Jeter was one of our first investors. TJ Rogers is a Silicon Valley icon. And then we have multiple investors involved in this as well. So you have proven winners involved in this already because they believe in the technology. They've tasted the product, they like the product, and they believe that there's something there, as do I. And I also believe, I've put together a really great team, a great group of people that go out and we're spreading this word and spreading the brand name and, hopefully getting more people on board and making this an everyday thing for bourbon explorers or whiskey explorers.
Nice. And I don't know a lot about your business, but I do know one thing, that at the end of the day, there's only a finite amount of space on the shelf of your local spirit shop. So for folks who are just finding out about the spirits industry, we've gotten how you've created it, how you built it up, how successful it is. But at the end of the day, you've got to get that bourbon whiskey in people's hands and accessible. People have to be able to go to a certain store that they get their alcohol, spirits, what have you, be able to find it. But a lot of these stores, there's big companies involved, there's politics. Take me behind the scenes on what it takes to get Bespoken. This amazing whiskey wins awards everywhere, but how the hell do you get it on shelves that people can buy it?
That's a great question because it is complex, as you know. The reality of the situation is it's our job as a supplier of this to gain consumer awareness, get consumers not just aware of it, but have them become fans. So clearly marketing and advertising play a huge role in this. And that's why it's so critical to have the right people involved in this to, have the funding to go out and do all the necessary blocking and tackling, the fundamentals of any brand building, whether it's alcohol or any consumer good. So I have that in my support team right now. And that's kind of how we go. And having the right distributor partners, is key. You got to have the people out there every day on the streets, selling your product, talking about your product, and getting the product on the shelf. And, you said that's a difficult thing, which it is. The hardest thing is getting it pulled off the shelf. So the biggest mistake most brands make is they'll invest a ton of money to push it out, but they don't create that lever to pull it out. And that's kind of where, I feel like I specialize in, and the people that I've surrounded myself with in the organization, what we do. We've got a great marketing team, great sales team, and you need it. It needs to be this 360 program of events to happen. It's not just one thing, and it takes time. It's every day, same message consistently and going at it. And it's a grind, like anything. Yeah. Any brand building process takes time, money, and patience.
And speaking of brand, we talk about this experience of getting the bottles pulled off the shelves. As most people know, when they walk into a spirit shop, man, a lot of these bottles look exactly the same. Like a vodka bottle, it's going to be clear. It'll have some sort of label on it. Whiskey, same thing. Beer. I mean, a perfect example is the hard seltzer. Like every hard seltzer is like that small little can. So how do you differentiate? How does Bespoken stand out on that shelf? When it comes to branding, how do you know that these colors, this font, this is going to pop out at people when they walk in and they're just surrounded by bottles?
For us, we just recently went through a package rehaul, and we've created what I believe to be a much more premiumized looking label and bottle for the consumer to draw to the consumer's eye. The thing is like there's a lot of great packages on the shelf. So getting the consumer to identify your brand and pull it off the shelf, it is challenging because you're looking at 12 feet of space, 4 or 5 shelves high and low. And, it's overwhelming for a lot of consumers, especially somebody who doesn't really know what they want. And my position is, it's not just being on the shelf that you want. Okay. You want to be in multiple points of distribution within that store. So you want to be in a display, or maybe in a cold box, or by the front checkout line, have signage in the store, a window sign, point of sale material all over. So it's if you have 3 or 4 points of distribution in that store, or just where the visually the consumer can see it, they're more apt to try it and pick it up and give it a go. So that's our tactic. It's not a guarantee by any means, but it helps tremendously for any brand. And most brands will tell you the same thing. That's the key to success, especially in an off-premise liquor store, these massive stores that are out there today.
And let's talk a little bit about marketing. And if you can just kind of educate me here, because I know when it comes to liquor, there are rules and regulations as to where you can market. I think for years, I think this must have changed. Please correct me. Like for years, you couldn't even advertise hard liquor on television, and that changed. I think you can only do magazines. So tell me about the way you attack things from a marketing perspective. Where do you go? Where do you see the most impact? Give us sort of an idea, like what someone in the spirits industry has to do to market their product.
I think it's changed tremendously over the past 10 years. I've seen it just in the 20 plus years that I've been in the industry. And, you can market on TV now. You just can't show somebody drinking it.
Okay.
So that's the big thing. There are states that have different laws and different ways of doing things. So everything kind of changes, regionally, I think. For myself, I spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy in creation of a great social media campaign. That's the way it is. And now there's e-commerce. People can actually order spirits online and have it delivered to them. So we really focus our energies, and we'll take, I want to say, 70% of our marketing budget and just focus social media platforms, and really get people excited about it, and just get them to see the brand. Just because it's on social media and they see it and they don't buy it, that's not a bad thing, because I want them to see the image of the logo. I want them to see the bottle. I want them to see the creative drink, because hopefully if you see it enough, eventually that consumer is going to go ahead and say, I'm going to give that a go.
Yeah. I mean, for examples like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. These companies don't need to advertise. It's like everyone knows Coke and Pepsi, but it's all about just keeping people top of mind. Like, oh yeah, Coke. All right, Coke, Pepsi. And it's always funny when you see these companies that are like billion-dollar companies and they're spending millions on advertising. And me as just a layperson, I'm like, couldn't they just save that money? I'm going to buy a Coke. I'm going to buy Pepsi anywhere. But it's funny. Why is that, Pete?
I think it's keeping things top of mind, like you said. And it's those images popping into the consumer's eyes day in and day out are critical. Going back to your original question, 20 years ago, it was my dad reading the newspaper and seeing an ad for Doors.
Yeah.
And then he'd get in his car and he would drive to work and hear an ad on the radio. And then he'd drive by a billboard and he'd see it. And then by the time he got home that night and he was driving by the liquor store, he's like, I'm going to go get a bottle of Doors. It's not like that anymore. And it's a much more honed in, focused approach, because you can geo-target your consumer, you look at demographics and really hone in and use data to find that consumer to pick up your bottle.
Cool. Well, let's dig into that a little bit, data and demographics. So, Pete, you and I are old enough to remember that bourbon and whiskey, that was the old man drink, sitting down on their chair at the end of the day, sipping it, forgetting about their hardest day. But it's changed. Tell me about the demographics of your average whiskey drinker now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more people trying it and enjoying it. Even, the female demographic, wow, we've seen this explosion of them trying it and enjoying it. It's not your just typical glass of Chardonnay or Pinot Grigio or bubbly. There is this effect, and I don't know why it is. I think it probably is because of social media, and it gets people, thinking about it and saying, hey, you know what, that looks that cocktail looks great. Let me give that a try. And it forces people to almost explore these new things that typically 10, 15 years ago, they never would have even thought of. So now we're entrenched with so much information day to day, from our laptops to our phones. We still listen to radio, or some of us do. I do. Some of us still watch TV, and so it's all this information coming at us all the time, and we live in this world of advertising and trying to reach consumers, and again, consumers are bombarded with all this, and so yeah, that's where I think the data has really kind of allowed people to open up to new experiences and say, hey, I want to give this a go. I want to try this. And they may not like it, but they try it. But then again, they may like it. And that's where you're seeing this expansion of it's not, the 55-year-old man coming home from work and drinking scotch on the rocks. It is a different world. People are going out and to these whiskey tastings. I think the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky, there's where all the distilleries are. It's big business that people come in and they go to these distilleries and they're tasting different whiskeys and different age and learning about taste profiles and processes. It wasn't like that, 50 years ago. It was a very different world. And so I think it's a beautiful thing. It's expanding the horizon for, a lot of people and trying new things.
That's cool. And it reminds me, because I feel like brown spirits, whiskey, bourbon, you guys are having your Sex in the City moment. And what I mean by that is, before the Sex in the City came on, I don't remember people drinking wine as much as they do today. Wine, again, was that on a special occasion, if you went out to eat, had a glass of wine. And it's obviously millennials fueled this, but when Sex and the City came out, wine drinking became cool. Whereas like everyone had multiple bottles of wine in their house. They were bringing wines to party, something that you never did. Like, I tell people this, I'm like, people didn't drink this much wine when I was a kid. Like, wine was like a special treat, and now it's just part of the lifestyle. And I feel like that's happening now for your industry, especially in the brown spirits industry, whiskeys, bourbons, that it's not just the drink for the end of the day. It's a lifestyle drink. You're obviously seeing that, right?
Oh gosh, yes. You're seeing the people going out and trying these classic cocktails, and it's pretty neat to be a part of it and to see this all kind of happening right in front of my eyes. But yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun, and you can kind of agree with me. Like when you were a kid, like the idea of wine drinking, like that was what is that? What is wine? That's something we drank on Sunday at church.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we definitely. Growing up for me, there was family didn't really drink a lot of wine. It was definitely coming from an Italian and Cuban heritage. It was definitely the Scotch,
Yeah.
And maybe some amaretto after dinner.
Well, cognac too.
So yeah, it's really it's amazing, this evolution of how things have kind of just grown and changed, and it's a beautiful thing, because again, it's this expansion of information, and so many people 20 years ago would not know these things or even think to look for these types of things, and now just being blasted in their face, and so they're like, oh, I want to give that a try. Let's give it a go. And so it happens to me too. I mean, I try things, food, for example, that I would have never tried in the past, and I'm like, wow, that looks pretty delicious.
I want to talk. You mentioned something about states earlier, and I kind of circle back to business here, because you're a national brand, as you mentioned, state to state, different laws. I live in South Carolina now. For some reason, you can buy a gun any day of the week, but you can't buy alcohol on Sundays. How does that affect your job? And as you know, especially in the Bible Belt, out in the Midwest, there's different rules when it comes to liquor laws. Do you have to like study, like, okay, I know in Montana we can't do this, in North Dakota, yes, South Carolina, Florida? How does that work for when you're a national brand, but having to deal with regional laws for your product?
Yeah, it's challenging, but being in the industry as long as I have, and the people that are around me, we study and we know these laws. For example, South Carolina, as you said, South Carolina is what we call a Class B state. So what you guys have is the distributor partner typically can sell to the on-premise, which is a restaurant and bar, or the off-premise, which is the liquor stores, right? Well, in South Carolina, the distributor can sell to the liquor stores, but they have to sell to what they call Class B retailers, and then the Class B retailers sell to the on-premise, the restaurants and bars. So it's almost like a third step just to get to the on-premise. So that presents challenges, especially when building a brand, because you can go into an on-premise account and say, hey, try my product. They love it. They want it. But then they go to try to order it from the Class B retailer and they can't. So then you have to make sure you sell it to the Class B retailer. So it's there are challenges. Every state is very, very different. There's no two alike. Florida, Texas, you name it. Texas is another Class B state. Then you have Florida, which is an open state. Then you have control states. So it can be complex. But overall, what we'll typically do as an organization, as a brand, we'll go in and we'll identify key markets where we're going to invest significant dollars to not just grow the brand, but to build the image of the brand. So you see a lot of people want to go into New York and LA and Miami, and those are really expensive markets to go and build a brand. Whereas you could probably go to a smaller, what we call secondary market, spend a fraction of the dollars, get the same amount of volume, but not get the image building process that you would in, say, a New York City. It is complex, but we really kind of try to manage, and we don't lose sight of all the markets, but we will take markets that are more challenging from a legal standpoint, and perhaps we'll either overinvest to overcome those challenges, or we'll pull back where it makes sense and we'll hold off until it does make sense.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for a company. As a consumer, it's really hard, especially my entire life lived in the New York area. And I know I could pretty much get booze anytime, beer. But here in South Carolina, you can't buy it on Sundays. And then they stop selling it at 7 p.m. It was so weird for me when I first, and not that I drink a lot, but it's just one of those things like in New Jersey, it's just so convenient. There's liquor stores everywhere. Any day of the week, you can go buy it. And then here they sell beer in Walmart and like in supermarkets, and up north, they don't sell it in supermarkets. So as a consumer, it's confusing. I can't imagine what it's like on the other side of things when you're trying to like look at all these different rules and regulations everywhere.
Yeah, we can make a book this thick. just on the differences of each market from laws and the way things are set up. So yeah, it is complex, and it is kind of a pain, and especially for consumers too. But yeah, I think most people that live in their markets, over time they learn and they figure out when the best time to go buy some liquor is.
Cool. So let's fast forward now to the our current state where you are in Austin, Texas, an event. You're going to be in Miami for another event. Tell me about what Bespoken is doing now, because like you said, it's been around. You've been doing this for a while. What's Bespoken doing now, and what's it setting up for the future?
Yeah, so really what we're doing now is the national rollout. We're doing it in clusters of states. So for the first few years, it was really proof of concept. It was mostly a West Coast based, California, Washington State kind of based. So what I'm doing here in Austin is we're actually launching the state of Texas. And so we're doing what we call a distributor rollout. It's a huge party, and we're inviting our distributor partners, local retailers, influencers, people from the community, anybody involved in the hospitality industry. And we're blasting off and launching our brand here in Austin. And then next week we'll be in lovely Fort Lauderdale. We'll be doing the same thing. Similar situation, launching the state of Florida with our distributor partner. And then as we go forward, the rest of the year, we'll be launching Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, New York. So it's all really starting to build a lot of momentum and a lot of excitement behind the brand. Distributor partners are excited to partner with us and to get behind this brand and help grow the brand as a whole.
Cool. And lastly, you mentioned that you're launching, you're doing like the quote unquote official kickoff in Texas and Florida. For folks who don't live in those states, how can they enjoy Bespoken right now?
So we're in a number of chains, Total Wine, Safeway, but you can go online. You can go to our website, bespokenspirits.com. That's the beauty of e-commerce now. You can click a button, and it might take you a few days if you're in Idaho. Mm-hmm. Most major states, I think we deliver to I think 37 states now. So that makes it. But hopefully here in the next, I would say 2 years, we'll be in a vast majority of the U.S. states.
Awesome. His name is Peter Iglesias, CEO of Bespoken Spirits. Peter, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure.
And that'll do it for another episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show. That way you'll receive new episodes as soon as they're available. And if you have a spare moment, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a review, which would help other exceptional entrepreneurs like you discover the show. You can always connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.